Staff safety is one of my primary roles as a clinical team manager, and looking at how we keep our staff safe in the community is something that a lot of people have grappled with over the years. My service is an acute mental health service. People work across the whole of South Leeds. Some areas are nicer than others, some areas have environmental risks, and sometimes our service users are very unwell, and that can create risks as well. We don't really have a system for keeping people safe. We rely on people to write their name, where they're going to, and a phone number on just a whiteboard in the office. The whiteboard itself isn't placed in a particularly great place. It's just near the door to encourage people to use it, but none of the officers are near the door, and so it doesn't get checked very regularly. And if someone doesn't come back, apart from giving them a ring, we have no way of identifying where they might be. So it seemed like an obvious choice to try and tackle something around digital technology and the use of smartphones. This has been one of the harder projects I've taken on, and one of the problems was that there are lots of different applications that provide a tracking service around looking at where people are, looking at the route people are taking, getting a snapshot of where they are. One of the main problems we've had is that most of those apps rely on someone being able to message you. So I might be in the office and one of my occupational therapists might be at someone's house. The app would rely on them messaging me to tell me that they were in trouble. And obviously that's not always possible. Also, if you're driving, for instance, we don't want people to be activating their phones or looking at them particularly. So we needed something that was automatic, but we also needed something that just did the job we wanted. We didn't want something that tracked someone's movements every minute of a shift, because we trust our staff to operate in an effective way themselves. And if they want to nip to a shop to get some lunch, that's absolutely fine. If they take a different route, that's fine. We trust them to manage their own day. So we didn't want something that tracked them every minute of the day, and we also spoke to the staff side representatives and they didn't want something that tracked them every minute of the day. So we had to find a happy medium between being able to find where someone was without them necessarily telling us, but also not being tracked every second of the day. So we tried lots of different apps, and the way we found them was I just asked staff if they'd heard of anything that they'd used in the past, that they'd tried. We Googled it, we looked through the App Store, and we looked for a criteria really. So what we needed was, it needed to work across different platforms because we have a mixture of Android-based phones and Apple phones. So it had to work on both. We needed something that could be used for free because there was no money associated with the project. It couldn't be something that tracked someone every minute of the day because that wasn't allowed, and it needed to have a facility for people to be found if they were lost and couldn't respond. And Companion seemed to meet most of that criteria. There were a number of challenges with this project, and it's still in a pilot phase really. Some of the challenges were around finding the right bit of technology to do the job, finding the right app, looking at how it worked and how we set it up within the team. Companion isn't the easiest app to set up. The process of it isn't easy, but it provided a functionality that we hadn't found anywhere else. So we decided it was worth the initial investment in time and expertise and training to get people to use it really. It has some great features. One of them is that if you get to, you put in the location you're going to and what time you expect to be there, and if you don't get to that location by that time, it will ping a message back to your buddy that you set up in advance and tell them you haven't arrived. And that's a great feature, and we really wanted that. But one of the problems with that is, if you park the car around the corner, then it doesn't pick up you've arrived. And so you can find that you get messages pinged back to your buddy when actually you have arrived and you are safe. So there were some challenges around it and some teething problems. Also, we had to challenge the culture of the team. People were really conscious that we might be tracking their every movements, and we absolutely weren't. And you can't actually do that with this app. So in a way, it kind of gets around that problem, but there was still that kind of feeling that we might be tracking, kind of doing a work time study, which isn't what we were doing at all. It was purely about staff safety. So I guess they were the two challenges that we faced that were the most difficult to overcome. Another one of the challenges is that it can be quite heavy on the battery usage, especially if you don't end it when you get to the place you're going to, the journey that you're on. It really does eat up the battery, and we found that if people are doing multiple visits and going from location to location to location, it would kind of eat a battery in one kind of session. And we provide people with in-car chargers, and we use our own lease cars, so that kind of gets around it in a way, but it's not ideal really. It also relies on fairly good data coverage around the areas you're going into, and we do extend right out into the countryside at the edge of our kind of patch, and so we found the coverage wasn't great in those areas, and we had to map where the coverage was good and where it wasn't, and when we could use it at the best really. The great features of this app and the reason that we went with it are numerous really. Firstly, you partner up with someone else on shift. We tend to partner up with a shift coordinator who stays on the base, and it allows you to set a location that you're going to and a time you expect to be there. So you can, the shift coordinator will be informed by your phone if you don't get there at a certain time. You can also set it to say what time you expect to leave, and if you don't leave within that certain amount of time, it will ping a message off as well. So that gives us the ability to track people's safety and make sure that people are leaving places when they're supposed to be. Oftentimes, when we get a message back, it's just because the meeting's overrun, but that's absolutely fine. But at least we know we have that bit of safety. We can also bing their phones and see if someone is in transit or stuck in traffic. There's also two other buttons which are really useful. There's one which says I'm uneasy, and if you press that, it just sends a message back to your body to say I'm feeling uneasy, and that allows us to say, get someone on the road almost to be near them just in case the situation escalates. There's another button which calls straight through to the police. So if an incident's happening, you only need to put your hand in your pocket and activate that on your phone, and it goes through to the police control centre, and they can hear from your phone what's happening. So we felt it gave us, although there is a cost in the battery life and the coverage isn't always great, it gave us the features we wanted, and that was the balance we struck. I guess the impact it's had on our team is that when we know we're going into an area that isn't nice late at night, or if we're going in to see a service user that we know has a history of risk to staff, or if we're just not certain, if we just don't know somewhere or someone, it gives us a backup, a technological backup to help us make sure that our staff remain safe and well and feel supported by the team around them.